My mother waited until the waiter brought out my 35th birthday cake before she slid a folder across the table and told me to sign away the only place my father had ever made me feel like I belonged. There were 12 people at dinner. My mother, my stepfather, my older brother and his wife, 2 aunts, 3 cousins, my brother's future in-laws. Even my 13-year-old niece was sitting there when Mom placed a silver pen beside the folder and said, "Claire, sign it tonight, so we can stop dragging this out." I stared at the yellow tabs, marking every place my name was supposed to go. "What am I signing?" My mother smiled without warmth. "A family agreement." "About what?" My brother, Jason, leaned back and sighed like I was already embarrassing him. "The lake house." My cake sat between us with 35 little candles burning down into white frosting. Nobody sang. Nobody touched their champagne. I reached for the first page. Mom put her hand over it. "You don't need to turn this into another investigation." That sentence told me everything. "Then I'm not signing." Her expression changed immediately. "Claire, I'm not signing something I'm not allowed to read," Jason's wife whispered. "Here we go." Mom lowered her voice. "Your brother is getting married in 6 months. He and Melissa are trying to build a real family. You are one person sitting on a 3-bedroom lake property you barely use." I felt every person at the table become very still. "Dad left me that house. Dad left all of us responsibilities," Jason said. "You're acting like he crowned you." I looked at him. "Did you read this?" He did not answer. Mom pushed the pen toward me again. "Sign it. Stop being selfish for one night." I laughed once because apparently my birthday was the one night when selfishness was forbidden, unless you were asking your daughter to hand over a house. "No." My mother's palm hit the table so hard my niece jumped. "Then get out." The entire private dining room went silent. "Mom, I mean it. If you cannot put this family ahead of yourself for once, leave." I looked around the table. Jason stared at his plate. My Aunt Denise suddenly became fascinated with her napkin. My cousins avoided my eyes. Melissa's parents looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. There were 12 people in that room and not one person said, "Maybe she should read it first." That was the moment my birthday stopped hurting. Something colder replaced the hurt. Clarity. I stood, picked up my coat, looked at the untouched cake my mother had ordered with Happy 35th, Claire written across it in blue frosting, and said, "Okay." Mom blinked. She had expected a fight. "Okay? You want me out?" "I'm leaving." Jason finally looked up. "Don't be dramatic." I smiled at him. "You should probably stop using that word every time someone refuses to cooperate with you." I walked out without opening a single gift. I did not know then that within 3 weeks, my mother would post a photograph of that same birthday dinner online with the caption, "Family is everything, even when love requires hard conversations." I did not know Jason had already promised his future in-laws that the lake house would become his wedding venue. I did not know my mother had been telling relatives I was emotionally attached to property because I was jealous that my brother was marrying while I was still single. But I knew one thing before I even reached my car. My father had warned me this night would come. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 35 that night, living in Minneapolis and working as a senior project manager for a company that renovates hospitals and senior living communities. It is not glamorous work. Nobody makes television shows about coordinating flooring deliveries around active surgical wings or convincing contractors that quiet hours in a dementia unit actually means quiet, but I love it. I am good at details, timelines, budgets, questions other people forget to ask until they become expensive. My family always described that part of me differently. According to my mother, I was intense. Jason was decisive. I was controlling. Jason was ambitious. I was career-obsessed. Jason asked questions because he was smart. I asked questions because I liked making things difficult. That pattern began before either of us understood it. Jason was 3 years older than me. He was the first child, the first grandson on my mother's side, the boy my grandmother called our little prince without irony. He played hockey, had friends everywhere, and possessed the strange ability to turn minor accomplishments into family events. Jason made varsity junior year, and Mom hosted 30 people. I won a statewide student design competition the same semester, and Mom said, "That's wonderful, honey," while checking the oven because Jason's team was coming over for pasta. I learned early that achievements were not equal. They were multiplied or divided depending on who earned them. Dad noticed. My father, Stephen Bennett, was quieter than Mom. He managed building maintenance for a chain of medical clinics around Minnesota. He was practical, patient, and almost painfully conflict avoidant. He loved Jason. He loved me too. But he often tried to compensate privately for things he was unwilling to challenge publicly. If Mom forgot a school event, Dad would take me for pancakes later. If Mom spent too much on Jason's hockey equipment and then said my art supplies were expensive, Dad would slip me cash while washing dishes. Don't tell your mother. I loved him for trying. It took me years to understand that secret kindness is not the same as protection. Mom's favoritism was never so dramatic that anyone outside the family would have called it abuse. That was what made it effective. My birthday parties were smaller because girls don't care as much about big parties. Jason got help with college because his program was more expensive. When I chose construction management instead of interior design, Mom told relatives I was still figuring things out. When Jason graduated with a marketing degree and took a sales job, she told everyone he was moving into corporate leadership. At Thanksgiving, Jason carved the turkey, even though Dad had cooked it. At Christmas, his gifts were always opened last, because Mom said, "We should save the exciting one." When I was 24, Jason forgot my birthday entirely. Mom said, "Men are terrible with dates." When I forgot to call him before noon on his 30th, she texted, "Your brother has always shown up for you. Please do better." Jason did not create the system. At least not originally. When we were kids, he was protective of me. He taught me to skate, beat up a boy who called me ugly in middle school, drove 4 hours during college because my car broke down, but golden children grow up too. Eventually, Jason learned something dangerous. If he wanted something and I objected, Mom would explain why my objection was unfair. Once he understood that, he stopped needing to ask whether he was taking too much. The lake house belonged to Dad's parents first. It sat near Brainerd, Minnesota, on a narrow lake surrounded by birch and pine. Not a mansion. Nothing ridiculous. 3 bedrooms, cedar siding, a screened porch, old dock, stone fireplace, and a kitchen that looked permanently stuck in 1994. Grandpa Bennett built much of it himself. When he died, Dad inherited it. When Grandma died 4 years later, Dad started going up almost every weekend. Mom hated it. She preferred resorts. "Why would I spend Saturday fixing gutters when hotels exist?" she used to say. So the lake house became Dad's place, and slowly mine. I started joining him after college. At first because he needed help replacing deck boards. Then because being there with him felt easier than being anywhere else with the family. We talked while working. Real talks. Not constantly. Dad was still Dad. Sometimes 3 hours passed, with nothing but drill noise and radio baseball. But at the lake, he asked about my career, without comparing it to Jason's. He asked whether I was dating because he cared whether I was happy, not because he thought being unmarried was a defect. When I got promoted at 30, Dad bought a bottle of cheap champagne and we drank it from coffee mugs on the dock, because neither of us had remembered wine glasses. "Your mother proud?" he asked. "She said I work too much." Dad looked across the lake. "I'm proud." "You should say that when she's around." He sighed. "I know." That was Dad's tragedy. He knew. He just kept waiting for a better moment. Then he got sick. Pancreatic cancer. 59 years old. 6 months from diagnosis to death. There is no elegant way to describe watching a parent disappear that quickly. 1 month he was helping me replace warped siding. 2 months later, I was helping him stand up from the couch. Mom became almost frantic during his illness, but not in the way I expected. She focused on logistics she could control. Doctors, insurance, visitors, which relatives knew what. Jason flew in from Denver twice, stayed 3 days each time, and posted one photograph with Dad captioned, "My hero, keep fighting." I took a leave from work and moved back temporarily. Not because anyone asked, because someone had to handle the hours nobody posted about. Medications at 2:00 a.m. Changing sheets. Keeping Dad hydrated. Sitting quietly when he was too tired to speak. Driving him to appointments while Mom complained that hospital parking made her anxious. Jason always had reasons he could not stay longer. A quarter-end sales target. Melissa's family event. Flights were expensive. Work was crazy. I understood every reason individually. Collectively, they still meant I was the one there. Dad noticed. 3 weeks before he died, we were at the lake house. He had insisted on one last weekend there. Getting him into the car took almost 20 minutes. When we arrived, he stood on the porch holding my arm, breathing hard, looking at the water like he was trying to memorize it. That night, after Mom went to bed, Dad sat in his old recliner with a blanket over his legs. "Claire." "Yeah?" Jason asked me about the house. I looked at him. "What about it?" "Whether I plan to sell before." He stopped. "Before you die?" He nodded. I hated how quickly we had all learned to finish sentences like that. "What did you say?" "No." "Okay." Then he asked what happens afterward. My stomach tightened. "Dad, your mother asked too. They're probably just scared." He looked at me for a long time. "You always make excuses for people before they ask." That surprised me. "Wonder where I learned that." He smiled sadly. "Fair." Then he reached toward the side table and handed me an envelope. "What is this?" "Something I should have done a long time ago." Inside was a simple letter and information about the lake house. Dad explained that he had arranged for it to pass directly to me. I immediately objected. "Jason will lose his mind." "Probably." "Mom too." "Definitely." "Then don't do this." Dad looked angry, which was rare by then because anger took energy he no longer had. "Claire, listen to me. I am not asking permission to decide what happens to my property." I shut up. "Your brother has received help from us his entire adult life. Down payment, car loan, business investment, wedding money already. You know that?" "Some of it. Not all." He exhaled. "I helped him because he asked. That was my choice. But I kept telling myself I would make things even later. This is too much. This is not a scoreboard. Then why me?" "Because this place means home to you." He looked toward the dark windows. "Jason sees value. Your mother sees equity. You see the porch where your grandmother taught you cards. You remember which dockboard needs replacing. You know the neighbor's dog. That doesn't mean I deserve a house." "Stop saying deserve." "Then what?" "I trust you not to turn it into a weapon." That sentence became important later. Dad handed me another envelope. "Open this only if your mother pressures you about the house." "Dad." "Promise." "What is it?" Me finally saying something when I'm not there to chicken out. I started crying. "That's not funny." "A little." "No." "Fine." He smiled. "Promise." I promised. Dad died 19 days later. For the first few months after the funeral, nobody discussed the lake house directly. Mom avoided going there because everything reminded her of him. I continued visiting. I fixed a broken step, winterized the pipes, cleaned Dad's coffee mug, and then put it back exactly where he had always kept it. I did not tell anyone yet that the house was mine. I was grieving. I did not want a fight attached to Dad's death. That silence became my first mistake. My family filled it with their own assumptions. By spring, Jason started saying things like, "When we decide what to do with the cabin," Mom called it our family property. Melissa sent me Pinterest photos of modern lake house kitchens. "Just ideas for someday." I replied, "Please don't plan renovations." She sent a laughing emoji. "Relax. We're dreaming." Dreaming about someone else's house is apparently harmless until you start hiring people. Jason and Melissa got engaged that summer. They had been together 4 years. I genuinely liked Melissa in the beginning. She was organized, social, and came from a family that seemed close. Her parents lived in Edina. Her father, Michael, was a dentist who owned 2 practices. Her mother, Susan, taught part-time at a private elementary school and volunteered everywhere. Mom was obsessed with impressing them. Suddenly, everything about our family required upgrading. Thanksgiving needed better serving dishes. Christmas photos required coordinated colors. Dad's old truck should be sold because it looked sad in the driveway. The lake house became central to Mom's fantasy because Melissa's family owned a vacation condo in Scottsdale, and for reasons only my mother understood, she seemed to view family property as a competitive sport. The first time Jason mentioned getting married at the lake, we were on a group call. "Wouldn't it be perfect?" Melissa said. "Small ceremony. Water. String lights." I answered immediately. "No." Silence. Jason laughed. "She means no to string lights." "I mean no to the wedding." Mom said. "Claire." "What? Why would you say that?" "Because it is a small residential property with septic limitations, limited parking, and elderly neighbors. And because nobody asked me." Jason said. "Why would we ask you?" There it was. My heartbeat changed. "Because Dad left it to me." Silence. Total. Then Mom laughed. Not because it was funny, because sometimes people laugh when reality is unacceptable. "What are you talking about?" "Dad left me the lake house." "No, he didn't." "Yes. Stephen would never do that." "He did," Jason said. "You're confused." That phrase landed hard. "I'm not." Mom demanded documents. I said we could discuss it later. She accused me of hiding things. Jason accused me of manipulating Dad while he was sick. Melissa stayed silent. Within 48 hours, the family story had formed. Claire had secretly influenced a dying man and was now selfishly hoarding the family lake house. Nobody asked why Dad might have made the decision. They skipped directly to how wrong I must have been. I thought the birthday dinner would be an attempt at reconciliation. Mom called 2 weeks before. "I want to celebrate you." That alone should have made me suspicious. She booked a private room at an upscale Italian restaurant in Minneapolis, invited extended family, said Jason and Melissa would be flying in. No house arguments, she promised. I wanted to believe her. At 35, I was still vulnerable to the possibility that my mother might choose me if I behaved correctly. So I went. Mom gave me pearl earrings at the start of dinner. Jason gave me a spa gift certificate. Everyone was pleasant. Too pleasant. Then dessert arrived. The folder came out. The family agreement. What I later learned was simple. It would have given Mom and Jason control over how the lake house was used, with language allowing them to authorize family events, renovations, rentals, and eventually a sale if they both agreed. I would remain the owner on paper, but lose meaningful control. They called it shared stewardship. I called it what it was. An attempt to make Dad's decision irrelevant. I did not know every detail when I walked out that night. I knew enough. I sat in my car for 10 minutes while snow fell against the windshield. My phone buzzed. "Mom. Come back inside. Stop embarrassing yourself." "Jason, you could have handled that like an adult." "Melissa, your mom is crying." Nobody asked if I was okay. Then another message came from Mom. "If you leave now, do not expect this family to keep chasing you." I stared at it. Chase me. I thought about every holiday I had rearranged. Every airport pickup. Every time Mom needed help after Dad died. Every time Jason borrowed something, forgot something, needed someone to cover something. I could not remember being chased. I remembered being summoned. I drove home. At midnight, I opened Dad's envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and a small USB drive. The letter began, "Claire, if you're reading this, your mother has probably confused pressure with love again, and I am sorry I spent too many years helping her do that by staying quiet." I sat on my kitchen floor. Dad apologized for every time he asked me to let things go, because confronting Mom felt harder. He wrote that Jason was not a bad person, but had grown accustomed to a family where his needs arrived first. "I contributed to that," Dad wrote. "Your mother rewarded it, you adapted to it. That does not mean you have to continue it." Then came the part about the lake house. If they tell you that keeping it means choosing property over family, remember that the house is not the boundary. Their refusal to accept no is the boundary. I am leaving it to you, because I want one place in your life where nobody gets to outvote you. I cried for nearly an hour. Then I plugged in the USB drive. Dad appeared on the screen, sitting in the lake house living room. Thin, tired, wearing the red flannel shirt I had donated after his funeral, because I could not stand seeing it. "Hi, kiddo." I completely lost it. He spoke for 11 minutes. About the house. About Mom. About Jason. About his own failures. I spent too many years calling you independent, when what I meant was I expected you to need less from me. That sentence broke something open inside me. Your brother got more because he asked louder. You got less because you made less noise. That was not fairness. That was convenience. He told me not to punish Jason, not to humiliate Mom, but he also told me not to surrender. Kind people sometimes think boundaries are cruelty because the people crossing them complain. Don't confuse complaint with injury. I replayed that line 3 times. The next morning, Mom called. I answered. "Have you calmed down?" "Yes." "Good. We need to finish the agreement." "No." Silence. "Claire, I'm not signing." "Then what are you proposing?" "Nothing." "That's not an answer." "It is." Her voice sharpened. "Jason's wedding depends on this." "Why?" "They want the lake." I said no. "You cannot just say no to your brother's wedding." "I just did." "Your father would be disgusted." I closed my eyes. "Don't." "Excuse me?" "Do not use Dad to pressure me about a decision he specifically made." "You think a piece of paper makes you know him better than his wife?" There it was. Competition even in grief. "No." I paused. "But I have something from him you should hear eventually." Mom went silent. "What?" "Not today. Claire." "Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. That was the beginning of 6 weeks that changed my family. Mom started with private pressure. Calls. Then guilt. "Your brother only gets married once." Melissa's parents already told relatives about the lake. Think how humiliating this is for me. Then she went public. Facebook. A photograph of Dad at the lake with Jason and me as teenagers. Caption. "Grief changes people. Praying that my children remember their father believed family always came before possessions." 63 comments. Hearts. Prayers. So true. My Aunt Denise texted, "Your mother is devastated. It's just one wedding." My cousin Aaron wrote, "I don't know the details, but this seems like a strange hill to die on." Nobody asked me for the details. They already had Mom's version. Jason called from Denver. "Can we talk without you acting like I'm stealing from you? Can we talk without you asking me for the house? I'm asking to use it." After trying to make me sign away control. That agreement was Mom's idea. "Were you at dinner?" "Yes." "Did you know what it said?" Silence. Jason. "Mostly. And you let her put it in front of me on my birthday. We thought you'd be more reasonable in person." "Reasonable? You mean easier to pressure with an audience?" "No." "Then why invite 12 people?" He sighed. "Claire, Melissa's family has already started planning." "That is not my fault. There are deposits." "Then cancel them. You're seriously going to cost us money because you're mad at Mom? You planned an event at a property you do not own." "Dad wouldn't care." "Dad said no." Silence. "What?" I told him about the video. "Not everything. Enough." Jason became quiet. "He talked about me?" "Yes." "What did he say?" "You should hear it yourself." "Send it." "No." "Why?" "Because if you want to hear Dad explain why he gave me the house, you can come sit in the house and hear him." Jason swore, then apologized. "I don't have time for a trip." "Then you don't have time for the answer." I hung up. For the first time in my life, I did not rearrange my schedule around his impatience. 2 days later, Melissa called. "Can I ask you something honestly?" "Sure." "Do you hate me?" "No." She exhaled. "Then why won't you let us use it?" "Because the answer was no before anyone spent money." "Jason said you weren't serious." That sounds like a Jason problem. Silence. My parents think this is all very uncomfortable. I agree. They thought the property belonged to the family. It belongs to me. But your family. There it was. Yes. Then I don't understand. Being family does not make my belongings communal. It's one weekend. It stopped being one weekend when you tried to change who controls the property. She went quiet. I didn't write that agreement. Did you know about it? Yes. Did you tell Jason it was wrong? Silence. Thank you for answering. Claire, I'm not angry at you for wanting a pretty wedding. I'm angry that everybody decided my no was only the opening position in a negotiation. She started crying. I'm sorry. Thank you. Could we still somehow work this out? No. It was strangely peaceful to say. The wedding venue changed. They found an event barn outside Stillwater. It cost more. Mom told everyone I had forced them into it. Jason barely spoke to me. Melissa sent one thank you message after I mailed a wedding gift and wrote, I hope someday this doesn't define us. I did not attend the wedding, not because they banned me. That almost would have been easier. I was invited, but Mom made sure I understood I would not be part of formal family photographs, because we don't need tension preserved forever, Jason called when I declined. Seriously? You don't want me in family photos? Mom made the list. You are 38 years old. Can we please not fight about every detail? I'm not fighting. I'm staying home. Melissa wants you there. Then she can take a photo with me another day. People will ask where you are. Tell them the truth. Which truth? Good question. That your sister didn't feel welcome enough to attend. He became angry. You always make everything about rejection. That one hurt because it contained enough truth to confuse me. Years of being second had made me sensitive. Therapy would later help me admit that. But sensitivity does not manufacture exclusion that is actually happening. Maybe, I said, but being sensitive to smoke doesn't mean the house isn't burning. He hung up. I spent the wedding weekend at the lake house alone. Saturday afternoon, I walked down to the dock in jeans and one of Dad's old sweatshirts. At 6, right when the ceremony was probably starting, I poured a glass of wine. I expected to feel pathetic. Instead, I felt sad and peaceful at the same time. I loved my brother. I hated that we had come to this. Both things could be true. At 8:30, my phone buzzed. A photograph from Melissa. She and Jason at the reception, smiling. Message. I wish you were here. I'm sorry. I replied. You look beautiful. I hope you have a wonderful life together. That was all. The next day, Mom posted 54 wedding photographs. Caption. My whole family together for the happiest day. I was not in a single one. My Aunt Susan commented. Where is Claire? Mom replied. Some people choose distance. I took a screenshot. Then I did something new. Nothing. I did not correct her. Did not message Susan. Did not post my own explanation. I went outside and repaired the dock ladder. That was when I began understanding that not every lie deserves your energy. Sometimes your absence from the argument is the boundary. Thanksgiving was the real turning point. Mom had always hosted at her house in Bloomington. That year, 7 months after Dad's death, she announced Thanksgiving would be a healing holiday. I should have known trouble was coming. She called in October. I expect you to come. Is that an invitation? Don't start, then ask. Silence. Claire, would you come to Thanksgiving? Yes. I decided to go because I was tired of family events existing only in Mom's version of the story. I did not go to fight. I went because being excluded and choosing not to attend are different things. When I arrived, Mom hugged me too long in the foyer. Performance hug. I'm glad you came. Thanks. Jason and Melissa were there. Newly married. He looked nervous. She hugged me sincerely. Hi. Hi. Her parents, Susan and Michael, had been invited too. They were warmer toward me than I expected. Michael said, I've wanted to thank you for the wedding gift. You're welcome, Susan added. And I'm sorry things became so complicated. Mom appeared instantly. We're not discussing that today. I smiled. Of course not. Dinner was tense but manageable until dessert. Mom had placed Dad's photograph on the sideboard beside a candle. Very tasteful. Very public. She stood with wine. I'd like to say something. Jason closed his eyes briefly. Interesting. This has been the hardest year of my life, Mom began. Losing Stephen changed everything. Her voice cracked genuinely. I felt my own grief rise, and I know grief has affected each of us differently. There have been misunderstandings, hurt feelings, decisions that perhaps none of us would make again. She looked at me. But family is bigger than property. There it was. I set down my fork. Mom continued. So tonight I hope we can put one particular conflict behind us. She reached into the cabinet and removed a small box. Inside was Dad's old lake house key. I want Claire to give Jason a family key. Silence. What? I asked. She smiled. Just a key, not ownership, a gesture, Jason whispered. Mom. She ignored him. One key says we're still family. It says Dad's home remains open to both of his children. Every eye moved toward me. Another public ambush. Smaller folder. Same method. No. Mom stared. Claire. No. It is a key. To my home. To your father's home. He gave it to me. And now you use that fact like a weapon. My chest tightened. I didn't bring the key to Thanksgiving. Because I am trying to fix this. By forcing another decision in front of an audience. Susan looked uncomfortable. Michael looked at Jason. Did you know about this? Jason said. Not exactly. Mom snapped. Why is everyone acting like I've committed a crime? I asked one daughter to share with her brother. I said quietly, you did not ask privately because you knew the answer. Because your answer is always no now, only to things you are not entitled to. Her face changed. There it was, the wound beneath her anger. She had lost authority over me. Your father would never recognize you. I looked at Dad's photograph. You're right. She seemed surprised. He wouldn't recognize the version of me who finally stopped letting everybody decide that Jason's disappointment is more important than my boundaries. Jason stood. Okay, stop. Mom turned. Sit down. No. I looked at him. He was pale. Claire. What? I went to the lake house. I froze. When? Last weekend. How? Mom still had the old garage code. I looked at her. She looked away. My pulse pounded. Jason continued quickly. I didn't go inside. The code didn't work. Because I changed it. I know. Why were you there? I wanted to understand why you care so much. The anger drained slightly. And I sat on the dock. His voice cracked. I hadn't been there since Dad got sick. Nobody moved. I realized I don't remember the last time I went up just to see him. Not because I needed anything. Tears appeared in his eyes. Mom said, Jason. He shook his head. No, Mom, she needs to hear this. He looked at me. I've been furious because Dad gave you the house. I know. But I think I was furious because it made something visible I didn't want to look at. I swallowed. What? You were there. Tears rolled down his face. I wasn't. Mom said, you had work. Jason laughed bitterly. So did Claire. You lived in Denver. She lived 3 hours away. He wiped his face. I called Dad maybe once a week near the end. Sometimes less. I looked down. He still loved you. I know. He never stopped. I know. Then don't turn the house into proof that he didn't. Jason nodded. That's what therapy said. I blinked. Therapy? Melissa smiled faintly. Wedding counseling became regular counseling. Surprise, Jason said through tears. Then he looked toward Mom. I knew about the birthday agreement. The room went quiet again. I knew Claire hadn't read it. I knew she didn't want to sign. I said nothing because getting access to the lake house benefited me. Mom looked furious. Why are you doing this? Because you keep asking Claire to prove she loves us by giving us things. That sentence changed the room. Mom stared at him. I do not. You do. He pointed toward the key. This, the agreement, the wedding, even the photos. What photos? I asked. Jason looked embarrassed. The wedding family photos? Mom made that decision. And I let her. Yes. I'm sorry. I believed him. Not because the apology was dramatic, because he did not add, but. Mom's eyes filled. Wonderful. So I'm the villain. There it was, the escape hatch. If accountability feels uncomfortable, turn it into persecution. I took a breath. No one called you a villain. You all clearly think it. I think you've spent our entire lives treating Jason as the person whose needs organize the family. She stared. That is ridiculous. When he needed hockey money, we had hockey money. When I needed art supplies, we had a budget. That was 30 years ago. When he needed help with his first condo, Dad contributed $20,000. Jason looked at me. You know about that? Dad told me before he died. Mom said, and you got a house, after 3 decades of differences, and I never asked for it. Mom's voice rose. So this is about scorekeeping. No, this is about what the scorekeeping reveals. Which is that whenever Jason receives more, it is family helping family. Whenever I protect something that is mine, I am selfish. Silence. I continued. You turned my birthday into an intervention because I would not give him control of Dad's house. You posted about me online. You excluded me from wedding photos. And tonight you put a key in front of me like my relationship with my brother can be measured by whether he has access to my property. My voice cracked. When do I get to be loved without buying admission? Mom's face changed. For 1 second, I saw pain instead of anger. Then she hardened. After everything I've done for you. I almost laughed. That sentence is why we keep ending up here. Mom stood. I will not be spoken to like this in my own house. I felt something strangely familiar. Birthday dinner, front door, same script, different house. Okay. I stood. Jason said. Claire, don't go. I'm not storming out. Mom laughed sharply. What would you call it? Leaving when I no longer want to stay. I picked up my coat. There's a difference. Melissa stood. Can we talk outside? Not tonight. Okay. She accepted it. Another small difference. Jason followed me to the foyer. Mom remained in the dining room, crying loudly enough for everyone to hear. He looked ashamed. I'm sorry. I know. For more than tonight. I know. I want to hear Dad's video. I looked at him. Come to the lake. When? You ask me when works. He nodded. Right. I almost smiled. Learning. Slowly. Before I left, my 13-year-old niece, Lily, ran into the foyer. Aunt Claire? Yeah? Are you mad at Dad? I crouched. A little. She looked worried. Do you still love him? Very much. Then why are you leaving? Children always find the question adults avoid. Because loving somebody doesn't mean staying in every room with them. She frowned. That's weird. It is. Can I still come to the lake someday? I looked at Jason. He immediately said, only if Aunt Claire invites us. Progress. I hugged Lily. Yes, someday. I drove back to Minneapolis through light snow. For the first time, leaving my mother's house did not feel like being thrown out. It felt like using a door. 3 weeks later, Jason came to the lake alone. No Melissa, no Mom. He brought groceries and asked before putting anything in the refrigerator, which was almost comical. We spent the morning replacing weather stripping around a back door. Dad would have laughed at how badly Jason used a utility knife. After lunch, I played the video. Jason cried from the first 30 seconds. Dad spoke directly to him near the end. Jason, if you are watching this angry at your sister, stop. I love you. I am proud of you. But I helped you too easily too often. You learned to see help as something that would arrive. Claire learned to stop asking. Neither lesson was fair to either of you. Jason covered his face. Dad continued. Do not make the lake house into evidence of how much I loved you. If you need evidence, remember every hockey game I froze through, every late-night phone call, every ridiculous business idea I listened to. Love is not measured by equal property. Then Dad smiled weakly into the camera. And for God's sake, don't let your mother renovate the kitchen. Those cabinets are fine. Jason laughed and sobbed at the same time. When the video ended, he sat in silence. I was jealous of you, he finally said. Why? Because you knew him at the end. You could have come. I know. Why didn't you? I was afraid. That surprised me. Of what? Seeing him sick. Seeing him not be Dad. He looked ashamed. Every time I visited, I left early because I couldn't handle it. Then I told myself you were better at caregiving. I wasn't. You looked like it. I cried in grocery store parking lots. He stared. You never told me. Nobody asked. Silence. That's not fair. No. I'm sorry. Thank you. Then he said something that mattered more than the apology. I don't want a key. I smiled. Good. Maybe someday you'll give me one. Maybe. But I don't want one because Mom made you prove something. Good. Can I come back in summer? Ask me in summer, he groaned. Boundaries are exhausting, mostly for people new to them. We laughed. That weekend rebuilt the first piece of our relationship. Not all of it. One piece. Mom remained harder. She did not speak to me for 2 months after Thanksgiving. Then came Christmas. I hosted at the lake house for the first time, not the entire family. That would have been insane. I invited Jason, Melissa, Lily, 2 close friends, and my Aunt Susan, who had privately apologized for staying silent at the birthday dinner. Mom was not invited. That became a scandal. Aunt Denise texted, "Christmas without your mother is cruel." I wrote, "She is welcome to host her own Christmas." Denise responded, "You know what I mean." I did. I stopped replying. Mom posted another Facebook message about children who weaponize boundaries. I took a screenshot because it was almost funny. Jason commented publicly, "Boundaries aren't weapons, Mom." She deleted his comment and called him immediately. He did not back down. That cost him something. I respected it. Christmas at the lake was messy and wonderful. Lily decorated Dad's old artificial tree with decorations collected over 40 years. Melissa made cinnamon rolls and burned the first batch. Jason found Dad's old Santa hat and wore it while grilling steaks because none of us wanted turkey. At dinner, Lily raised her water glass and said, "I'm thankful Aunt Claire invited us." Simple. No ownership language. No. Our lake house. Invited. I cried into my potatoes. In January, Mom finally sent me an email. Not a text. 6 paragraphs. The first 4 were terrible. She explained her stress, her grief, how difficult it had been to watch Dad leave something unequally, how she felt judged by me. I almost stopped reading. The 5th paragraph changed. I have spent my life believing the person who needed more deserved more, and because Jason was louder about needing me, I gave him more. You seemed capable, so I told myself you were fine. I now see that I turned your capability into an excuse. I read it twice. Then, I also see that I asked you to repair my guilt by sharing something Stephen deliberately left to you. That was wrong. No, but, I cried. The final sentence said, I am not asking for a key. I am asking whether one day you might let me visit. I waited 8 days before responding. Maybe. Not yet. Mom replied. I understand. I did not believe her completely, but I noticed she did not argue. Months passed. Therapy helped me understand something I had not expected. My family had hurt me, but I also had habits that kept me inside the pattern. I rarely asked for help because I assumed I would be disappointed. I interpreted some neutral things as rejection because rejection had been familiar. I performed competence constantly, then felt unseen when people believed I did not need anything. That did not excuse Mom or Jason. It did give me responsibility for the adult life I built afterward. I started telling friends when I needed support. I stopped volunteering for every extra work problem. I dated again, slowly. No grand romance, just coffee with a civil engineer named Ryan who listened when I spoke and did not seem threatened when I disagreed with him. The first time he visited the lake house, he said, "This place is beautiful." Then, do you want help bringing firewood in? Not, I can fix this. Not, you should renovate that. Do you want help? I almost proposed on principle. I did not. Mom visited the lake house the following August. I invited her for lunch only. 3 hours. She arrived 10 minutes early and waited in her car until the exact time. I noticed. When I opened the door, she held a pie. Can I come in? My throat tightened. Yes. She entered slowly, looked around. Dad's boots were still beside the mudroom door. His coffee mug still hung from the same hook. Mom started crying. I haven't been here since. I know. She walked to the kitchen and touched one cabinet. He really hated when I talked about painting these. The video mentioned it. She laughed through tears. Of course it did. We ate lunch on the screened porch. For 20 minutes, everything was polite. Then she said, I owe you an apology without explanations. I waited. I ambushed you on your birthday. My body tightened just hearing it. I knew you would say no privately, so I surrounded you with people and hoped shame would make you sign. There it was. Complete truth. Why? Because I thought if you gave Jason access, I wouldn't have to accept that your father deliberately chose differently than I expected. You were angry at Dad. Furious, so you punished me. Tears filled her eyes. Yes. Why the wedding photos? She looked ashamed. Because when you declined, I wanted people to think it was your choice alone. It was my choice to decline, after I made you feel unwelcome. Yes. I'm sorry. We sat quietly. Then I asked something I had never asked directly. Do you like me? Mom looked stunned. Claire. Not love. You're my mother. You'll say you love me. Do you like me? She cried before answering. I think I spent so many years feeling criticized by your questions that I interpreted your personality as rejection of me. That isn't an answer. She took a long breath. Yes, I like you. And I wish I had gotten curious about you instead of defensive around you. That was one of the most meaningful things she ever said. We did not hug dramatically. We washed dishes together. Then, at 3, Mom looked at the clock. My time's up. You can stay another hour. She smiled carefully. Are you sure? Yes. Then I'd like that. Consent. Even in small things. The family changed slowly after that. Not magically. Mom still slipped. Once she referred to the lake as the family place, in conversation and corrected herself. Claire's place. Sorry. Jason once asked whether he could invite 2 friends up for fishing. I said no because I already had plans. He responded. Okay. No guilt. No, Mom phone call. I almost checked whether he had been replaced by an actor. Melissa and I became closer after she apologized for the birthday agreement. She told me she had known it felt wrong but was afraid challenging Jason before the wedding would create conflict. So you let me carry the conflict instead. She nodded. Yes, that hurt. I know. Don't do it again. I won't. Then she did something useful. When her parents later asked about spending a weekend at the lake, Melissa said, That's Claire's place. You'll have to ask her. Not Jason. Me. Small corrections reshape family systems. 2 years after the birthday dinner, Jason and Melissa had a baby boy, Steven, named after Dad. They asked me before using the name. Why are you asking? I said. Jason shrugged. Because Dad mattered differently to both of us. That was growth. Baby Steven's first trip to the lake happened when he was 6 months old. Jason carried too much baby equipment inside. Melissa looked exhausted. Lily, now 15, claimed the upstairs bedroom she liked. Nobody called anything our room. One evening, we all sat on the dock. Jason held his son and said, I understand Dad differently now. How? I keep wanting to make life easy for this kid. He kissed the baby's head. Then I think about how easy Dad made some things for me. You survived. Barely. I laughed. You turned out okay. Eventually. He looked toward me. I don't want Steven growing up thinking Lily should need less because she's responsible. Lily shouted from behind us. Good. We had not realized she was listening. Go away. Jason said. Therapy family is exhausting, she yelled, walking back toward the house. We laughed until the baby woke. My 38th birthday was the first birthday I chose to celebrate at the lake. Small dinner, 8 people, Mom asked before inviting Aunt Susan. Jason brought cake. When he carried it out, I froze for half a second because memory is strange. Same candles. Different room. You okay? He asked. Yeah. No folders. Good policy. Everybody laughed. Mom did not. She reached over and squeezed my hand. After dinner, she handed me a gift. A silver pen. For one terrifying second, I thought she had lost her mind. Then I saw an engraving. Read before you sign. I laughed so hard, I cried. Mom said, too soon? 2 years? And that's what you chose? Therapist said humor can be reparative. Fire your therapist, Jason shouted. I think it's incredible. Of course you do. I kept the pen. It sits on my desk today. Not because the birthday ambush became funny. It did not. But because healing sometimes means a memory loses the power to control your nervous system. I am 40 now, still unmarried, although Ryan and I are still together and annoyingly happy. My mother has finally stopped asking whether that relationship is going somewhere. The last time she did, I said, "It's going to dinner Thursday." She rolled her eyes and never asked again. The lake house remains mine. I have not sold it. I have not turned it into a business. I use it. Friends visit. Family visits by invitation. Sometimes I spend weekends there alone. People used to say, "Isn't that a lot of house for one woman?" I used to feel defensive. Now I answer, sometimes. That is enough. Rooms do not have to be occupied constantly to justify belonging to someone. Neither do lives. Dad did not leave me the lake house because I was the better child. He left it because he recognized a pattern he had helped create and finally chose to interrupt it. That distinction took years for me to understand. If I treated the house as proof I was more deserving than Jason, I would simply rebuild the same family hierarchy with myself on top. So I do not. Jason is not less loved because he does not own the lake house. I am not more loved because I do. We are adults now, responsible for turning inheritance, emotional, and financial into something healthier than what we received. I also understand my mother differently. Understanding is not absolution. She hurt me. Publicly. Deliberately. She used an audience because she knew embarrassment was one of my old weaknesses. She turned my birthday into leverage. She lied online after I left. She helped exclude me from wedding photographs. Those things happened. But I no longer need her to be purely monstrous in order for my boundaries to be justified. She was grieving, controlling, frightened of losing the family structure she understood, and deeply conditioned to see Jason's needs as urgent. All of that can be true alongside this. She behaved cruelly. Mature forgiveness, for me, meant holding the whole picture without returning to the old arrangement. Mom no longer has a permanent key to the lake house. She may never have one. She visits anyway. She asks. I answer. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Our relationship survived the word no. That is how I know it is healthier now. Last Thanksgiving, everyone came up to the lake. Snow covered the dock. Jason brought too much food. Mom complained the drive was long and immediately caught herself. That sounded like pressure. A little. Sorry. Accepted. Melissa brought board games. Lily brought her boyfriend, which made Jason look physically ill. Baby Steven, now a toddler, spent most of dinner dropping peas on the floor. Before dessert, Mom stood with a glass. I felt my shoulders tense automatically. She noticed. No surprises. Everyone laughed. She said, I spent a lot of years believing keeping a family together meant preventing people from leaving the table. She looked at me. I was wrong. Sometimes people need to know they are free to leave before sitting down together means anything. My eyes filled. She raised her glass. Thank you, Claire, for inviting us. That word again. Inviting. Not allowing us back into our place. Not sharing what belongs to everyone. inviting us into yours. We toasted. Later, after everyone went to sleep, I sat alone beside the stone fireplace with Dad's old video open on my laptop. I did not play it. I no longer needed to hear him tell me what to do. That may have been the real inheritance. The ability to trust myself when everyone else insists that love means surrendering my judgment. I looked around the room and thought about that 35th birthday. 12 people, a folder, a silver pen. My mother telling me to sign because family came first. I had believed walking out meant losing them. Instead, walking out became the first thing that gave the relationships worth saving a chance to change. Boundaries did not destroy my family. The absence of boundaries had already been destroying us quietly for decades. Saying no simply made the damage visible. So, if there is one thing I would tell anyone sitting at a dinner table where family is using guilt, tradition, marriage, children, or public embarrassment to force your hand, it is this: love does not require an unread signature. Family does not become entitled to something because they have already made plans for it. And a person who truly respects you can survive hearing no. So let me ask you the question that still divides people when I tell this story. If your mother publicly ambushed you on your birthday and demanded that you give your favored sibling control of a home your late father deliberately left to you, would you eventually forgive them if they genuinely changed? Or would the fact that your entire family stayed silent while you were thrown out be enough for you to walk away for good?